rising with eastern light, still as the dew of the morning, fresh from a dreamless night, filled with a lover's longing. How deeply the branches bow, as deeply the roots must be holding. May I remember what I'm knowing right now, as strong as the winds may be blowing. Nothing, nothing could be separate from us. Nothing, nothing could be separate from us. Nothing.
We have to look at the way we do things in the old ways, but look to a future of incorporating those needs, as well as the needs of the human, into our new activities and moving forward together in partnerships.
This is what makes this project different than many others. It's really easy to come in here in a landslide like this and just end dump a bunch of rock, and the slope will be stable, but there'll be no habitat enhancements. You'll have rock for 400 years, but you won't have any habitat. So to develop the habitat requires bioengineering and a sensitivity to the environment. And it takes kind of special planning. It doesn't necessarily take a lot more work. It just needs, you need to plan it all in advance.
Right. Well, a fairly recent development in engineering science and bringing together biology and the engineering and construction sciences has been use of more natural materials in a design. And I often find myself with a group of engineers or builders out near a stream or in some natural environment, and they are focused on the issue, you know, at the edge of the stream or at the edge of the road, and I'm looking upslope to see what's actually going on. And we're starting to make a movement towards looking to see that the tree is holding the slope up. Maybe if we put a tree here, we've solved our problem.
Coho salmon, I call them charismatic macrofauna. They're the canary in the minefield. They're an indicator species. When things are starting to fall apart in the watershed, you have landslides and the wood is taken out of the creek and we have dams blocking rivers. The first thing to go is probably the coho. And when you start restoring creeks and coho come back, it's such a great sign that things are really coming together in a new way.
But the biggest issue why we're here is because there's resource values, there's salmonids now, there's habitat concerns. So how do you keep those roads open and maintain the habitat? How do you look at the ecosystem and make the ecosystem as important as the transportation routes? Black plastic, you know, how do you cover the slope and protect it from failing anymore? Well, you put black plastic on it, you know, that'll keep the water off of it. Black plastic is putting a Band-Aid, it's treating the symptom only. And we all know that you need to, you know, take the Band-Aid off and treat the wound.
The opportunity to implement a practice really comes in a one-shot deal. And so we want to make sure that when we're implementing a practice, we're comprehensively addressing as many of the issues and concerns around resources as possible. That includes water quality, endangered species, vegetation, and soil loss.
When I first saw the site, I thought this is just typical of many mountain road sites, especially in the redwood forest. It's a county road that tries to occupy the bottom of a canyon with a stream. And right there you have problems. You have altered hydrology, changes in the landform. You got a creek down there cutting the toe of the thing. And also it looked very typical of a landslide. And it looked very typical of the kind of problems the county road workers have, just dozens of them. That's the challenge. How do they keep those roads open? You know, how do they maintain that transportation corridor and get people out for fires and access and things? One of the first things we're doing right now is we're coming in here and clearing all the old debris out of the way. We're going to take extra special care to remove any of the noxious weeds. We're getting rid of the blackberries and Scotch broom that's in the area. The crew is also right down near the toe of the bank, right between the stream and our work. They're installing a silt fence. And that's to catch any sediment that might fall down the slope during construction. It's really difficult to put the silt fence in correctly because it has to be buried in 6 to 8 inches so water can't get under it, and secured and anchored real carefully. And that's sometimes difficult in a stream. We asked the crew to remove the stakes that were already attached to the silt fence. Those stakes that are pre-attached by the manufacturers cause more problems than they're worth. A lot of times you can't get the silt fence anchored deep enough. It's supposed to be this technique that helps you, but they're always a problem, and they make it more difficult to install the silt fence properly. I prefer not to have the wooden stakes installed and just buy the filter fabric and then stake it accordingly. Sometimes we need T-posts. Sometimes wooden stakes just aren't strong enough for the load they have to carry. This landslide would have liked to come down and just hang here. It would have been okay, but the creek can keep removing the toe of it. So we need to make sure that doesn't happen. And continue to fill the toe of that with some rocks, and then work from this side if you can. We'll bring the fence back up and pound some stakes just on the downstream side of it to secure it. And then as soon as we're done with construction, we'll remove it. And that'll catch any material from getting in. It's getting down into some of the subsoil. Just a little bit of that duff and stuff I'd like to get. Duff is that leaf litter and organic matter that's right on top. That's precious. Okay. That's got all the little microorganisms and stuff in it. The magic. So the purpose of this project is to stabilize the landslide and to stabilize the road. Typically, what would be done is you would build a crib wall out of cement, dump rock. In fact, there's been a lot of rock dumped in here, and compact it, build the soil back up, and redo the road. Unfortunately, a lot of those practices like concrete cribs, rock, is compacted, it doesn't grow any vegetation. And vegetation provides a lot of the ecosystem benefits and some of the habitat. Things like shade, cover, leaves that fall in the stream to form the whole food chain and food web. These leaves and nutrients and stuff from the leaves also flow downstream, but they provide all the health and vigor for the stream all the way down to the San Lorenzo River. If you take away the food source, the whole system's going to die. So every one of these sites that we come in and have done a great job in stabilizing with rock and riprap and things like that have not provided any benefits to the ecosystem. The challenge is, can we do both? Can we stabilize the slopes and still provide some benefits to the ecosystem?
When the heavy equipment gets down here to the toe, the very first thing that we want him to do is to try to salvage some plants. Some of the plant species that are out here are really difficult to propagate, and if you try to do it as it should be done with the getting just material that's very close to the genetics of what's already here, it takes years and years. You know, someone to come out and collect and then propagate. By the time they get to this size, you've got a lot of money invested. If you can harvest plants off of this site, you've saved them and you've saved some money, and you have the right genetic material. So if you have a good equipment operator who's really willing to take on the challenge, there are some species that are definitely worth plucking out. And I'm not talking about absolutely everything that is here, but there are definitely some that are really worth saving and can really also help with the immediate erosion control needs. One thing that I always look for are ferns on the site, because they are so difficult to propagate that most likely you'll never have them propagated in the commercial nursery from this source and bring back. So they're not extremely deep-rooted. They are easy to get out with a bucket and very easy to plop back in and be successful as long as there's enough moisture, like a water truck coming along and watering them in. You need to pick a spot on your site to store your plant material that's going to be out of the area that is going to be disturbed. And it needs to be a site too that you can get water to it if you have a project that's more than a day or two long, which is almost every project. So usually to the left or to the right of your project site, for the plants that were up in the top, he actually stored them in a very shady nook right across the road, and there's going to really be easy to get some water over to that side. We need to pick a spot here that the same thing will work. I brought down some plastic. It was the plastic that was used to cover the face here. We just cut out some squares so that we could set that to the side, kind of make as much as possible of a nice big container, so to speak, and just to place the plants right on top of that. The plastic will help it from just completely smothering what plant material we're setting it on top of, and it'll help keep the moisture that's being added, keep it right there for the roots. There definitely is root damage instantly, so you do have to add water, but a water truck can do that really easily. There were some non-native species on this site that we don't want to be spreading around, and those were already pulled this morning. You can see the pile sitting back here. Looks like some nice Himalayan berry and some non-native thistles, and so those need to be just that pile scooped up and brought out, and hopefully can be taken to a dump in the truck this evening.
The trees are hard to get a good bundle of soil around. We're probably going to have a best luck with the juncus because they're fibrous roots. They'll probably hold the soil together better. But it's worth, as she places them over there on the plastic, we're going to put water on them and water them in to try to keep them alive. There's the water. The trick is to get the whole crew working towards similar goals and find solutions to these problems. This has got to be cost effective in order to do it. You've got to figure out ways to do this the easiest way and the cheapest way. There's this whole restoration philosophy called the mother plant theory. And if you get several adult full-grown plants growing in the area, the mother plants, then they will provide the seed and stuff for natural recruitment to occur in the rest of the area. So a lot of times you don't even need to really plant the adjacent areas, just make sure the weeds don't come in and make sure the soil's stable so it doesn't erode and you don't have big landslides. You provide that stability, you provide mother plants nearby, and nature will take over. It'll start healing itself. But if you don't do those things, then you're just going to get the weeds taken over, noxious weeds, non-natives, and you've just kind of messed up the whole ecosystem. It could take 20, 30 years for it to straighten itself out, if ever. So biotechnical, bioengineering, these methods have been around for centuries. But the structural things haven't been around for centuries. So we're going to try here to combine some of the structural measures that we know, the engineering techniques, with the vegetative techniques, and build an even stronger slope. Maybe a slope that grows stronger with time, requires less maintenance. On this site, the engineering solution did have a rock toe, and a rock toe is a really good thing. We need to load the toe of these landslides. You need weight down there to make sure that there's no more earth movement. All the forces are pushing down. So we load the toe with rock. But as we're loading the toe with rock and digging our keyway, can we also be planting willow poles and willow brush really deep so that every one of those branches provides some geotechnical benefits also, helps reinforce the rock. And then we all know what it's going to do as it grows outside the rock. It's going to provide that cover, the leaves, all the habitat benefits that we're looking for. We're going to go ahead down here and we'll lay some brush layering and explain what we're doing here. Yeah. We got the equipment shut down so we can safely work around the rock. key to this operation is Gennaro there watering the willows in. So this is really important. Not only do you get structural fill compacted, but it waters the willows in. It's just like transplanting a plant. You want to make sure you add plenty of water in your flower pot. So that's the same thing we need to do, is keep this material wet all the time and water it in really well. So the other thing, we want to make sure that the willows are facing the right direction and stuff. And we want them with the bud end down.
Into that stuff? Just like that?
Yeah, and it would be helpful if you would go ahead and cut a little slit in that filter fabric, right where it's going to go.
Through?
Okay. It's pretty tough fabric. I think it'd be easier to cut. Okay. And what we want to do is make sure we have really good soil contact with the willow branches.
Okay, hold on.
And then when you place them like this, see, there's perfect. The branch is on an angle. It's pointing uphill.
Okay.
Augie will fill that with soil and gabion rock.
Great.
The rock will provide some of the drainage, and the soil in there will fill in the interstitial spaces, and that's where the willow will actually root. The trick of really good, and
like
you can,
that, right?
yeah, and you can crisscross the willow also to add more even more structural stability. In here, we're kind of short distance, and really that we want to follow the 80% rule. You want 80% of your willow buried and only 20% sticking out in the daylight. So you can see some of these are kind of long. So sometimes you can come through and lop these off and grab some of these branches and put them back in, and these will root also. So we can take some of these little shorties and place them just like that. Now that one was, we can put a bunch up in here also.
Where?
So up in here, we want to line this whole thing. Okay.
Close to there, I gotta still dig.
Good.
Right here?
Yeah.
This one's from underneath.
Okay.
Okay, let's move across this way then.
Move across. We'll start right about in here.
Okay.
No, I think we're okay. We'll let Augie do his magic now. He's going to put some more gabion rock and some soil back in there. Why don't you throw a load or two of soil, Augie? Here in this project is how to build the rock up, pause for a moment, plant the willows really deep, place some more rock, and actually put some soil behind the rock so the willows can root. See how it's a rock buttress in the face of it? When we're all done, we're going to have the willows sticking out through the face. And I'm going to go over right now and instruct Augie on how to build a terrace, and we'll start our first geo-wrap or soil wrap face. I heard that the fabric just came. We're using a coconut netting blend, and we're going to wrap the face of this, and it's going to also geotechnically stabilize it and provide some of the erosion control. Let's just look at compaction for a moment. So if we compact it too much, we can't get the vegetation to grow. If our goals are to have a stable road and have fish habitat, for instance, then we have two goals. And we're going to need less compaction, but still we're going to need structural soundness. So from the rock up, we're going to try some techniques called geotextile soil wraps, and we're going to try some techniques called brush layering. And these are geotechnical techniques. We're doing an engineered soil fill. The different thing about it is we're using live materials for some of our engineered soil fill. And we're going to use some nice coconut fiber to wrap the face of this with, because we want some additional structural stability. We also want erosion control, and so that erosion control blanket or the coir coconut netting will allow us to plant through the face of it. So now we're going to have a slope that's geotechnically stable. It's going to have soil in it that's not compacted too much that we can plant. We'll have structural fill underneath the road, and we'll have a slope that's all tied together and so that it can't move, and that's engineered soil fill. Make this first terrace and just make sure it's dipping back. It only needs to be about 4 feet or 6 feet deep, and dip it back into the slope, and we'll lay out a piece and we'll start doing our soil wrap. There's the face. The face of this slope is going to look about like this. So we want those branches sticking out of the face about a foot or so. So you have to kind of visualize where the face is going to be, and we'll lay them out accordingly. It's okay if we have too much branch sticking out, because you can always come back and cut some of it off. If you got them all buried, The willow needs some sun and it's not going to grow. Augie's now going to spread a little bit of soil over these willow branches. It's just like a transplanting a plant. You know, start thinking like a tomato farmer and get all these branches in good contact with the soil as much as you possibly can. The other benefit of brush layering is they're planted so deep in the slope and they're watered in order to get our proper compaction. That moisture will stay with those willows for some time. That's why you can use this technique in maybe even July and August on the coastal stream areas and still have tremendous success. Push it into September if you need to, because as long as we handle the willow right, we keep it moist and we soak it and plant it deep like this and then water it in really well, your chance of success is greatly increased. Okay. Now the trick with this stuff, as you'll see, is getting a really nice smooth wrap around it, and there's various ways we can do that. Some practitioners fill burlap sacks with soil and lay it right out here in the face, and then you can compact behind it, and then when you roll the fabric over, you have a nice smooth face. Some practitioners build a batterboard wall, you know, and you compact against it, but then you have to remove the batterboard and build it up each time you build the slope. Caltrans will do that a lot. But what we're gonna do, Augie, is go ahead and maybe we should put one, well, we really can't fit one more blanket. Go ahead and put about 18 inches or 2 feet of soil on this, and we'll pack the face square and smooth, and then we'll do our wrap around, and we'll get an idea how this goes then. So one of the big problems here is these roads require maintenance. I've heard from the staff that this is the third time they've revisited this site since it blew out. So here we are back again trying to repair it. If we repair it this way using the biotechnical techniques, will we ever have to come back again? You know, how much harder is it? How much more difficult is it? How much more does it cost? There's the possibility that it costs less. It requires maybe more labor. We all need jobs. Labor's a good thing. It requires sensitivity, maybe how to plant, but it might and probably will grow stronger with time. Maybe we can spend some of our energy on the third and fourth time coming back to these sites, going and repairing some of the other sites. We really want to test on this site how difficult or how easy it is to build this way. It's interesting to see crews start working together and finding the better way to build these things. And after a while, you get used to it. These things can go up pretty fast. It's neat watching crews figure out new ways to do the jobs and making it better. Bioengineering practitioners can stand up here and tell you what it should look like and how to do it and stuff, but really the proof is when you're in there actually building it. Our grandchildren are going to need models too. They're going to need places that they can tell what it did look like and what it could be. And it gets pretty depressing and it gets pretty sad to think of what this globe is going to look like when my grandchildren are looking to go out. But the solution is also to watch those kids now that are like in 6th and 7th grade. Kids know where their ecological address is. They tell mom and dad, you know, when you wash the car, that stuff is going in that storm sewer, and that storm sewer is connected to Zayante Creek, and that's going to affect the salmon. That's something my generation never knew. And so the hope is that they will get a feeling of connectedness, and they're getting it already, prior to much sooner than I ever got it. So that's hopeful.
Our work in the riparian areas is going to allow us to maintain our facilities, our roads and bridges, but it's also going to make sure that the area that we're impacting is going to be left in a much better condition. And this will be true for future generations. Our children will see that these riparian areas can be improved and left in in a much better state than our old processes were responsible for.
There's also this thing when we're out here building this and planting it, planting it, doing the right thing, we leave at the end of the day, I certainly do, and feel better. Feel like I was part of the solution, the long-term solution. And it's like that saying that when you save someone's life, you owe them your life forever. So by going out there and planting a willow stake or planting a tree, I begin to take ownership of this watershed. You know, it becomes part of me. And it's really going to be hard to pry me away. And I see dozens of us have worked on this project. And I think we're all going to get a little sense of that, a sense of ownership, that we're part of this system that's bigger than all of us.
So I turn my collar to the wind and pray that I will remember what I know so clearly this day in Northern California, late November, that nothing could be separate from this. Nothing could be separate from this. No, nothing could be separate from this. Nothing at all.